Okay, this has been something that's been on my mind for many weeks now, ever since like the end of this thing happened, and ever since I played for this team and for Mike, and like this is who Mike Addesa really is. This is who Brian Addesa really is, and this is why they are no longer effective coaches. So here you go. Their promise to me was to coach me, was to be a family with me, was to take care of me, was to check in on me, and be patient with me. By the way, they ended up not doing any of those things, just so you know. I do remember in my first game there that the assistant, like, he brought all of his defensemen together during like one of the intermissions, I think, or maybe it was during a timeout. It was early on in the game, and I don't remember word for word what he said, but he said, "I need guys to play defense," and he like kept relaying that message in different ways, and then that kept going during that game. Why I'm bringing that up is that's a sign that they're not being patient. I don't remember what the general manager said to me after that game ended, but it was basically a continued promise that they were going to coach me to play defense. It's like he'll talk for like an hour or two to us at times, which is why they probably don't get the message, is because like you ramble on for hours on end. Like, it's better to be concise and get to the point. And I also remember the assistant got mad at me for like just a play that I made that didn't end up in a turnover, that didn't end up with the goal against. And because that's not according to the system, I got yelled at. That's like a problem I have with hockey coaches in general. Not just that. That's part of why the system that they have doesn't work, because it's so like strict that you can't make these smart plays that smart players can make. That's not to say that I'm a smart player by any means. It's just that there are plays available other than just dumping it in and going for a rim around the boards, or having just these 3 or 4 breakouts when you can just skate it out, and then having to constantly just follow a system that is basically too strict, that doesn't allow for creativity. And by the way, I saw this during like a live barn video. It's hypocritical to say you should be creative and also follow the system basically word for word, like a drone. So which one do you want? You want creativity, or do you want follow what the coaches say? They make like a certain pass that normally may or may not be there. It's like, if you want that creativity, you can't have like a strict system of, say, puck must always go from like this point guy to one of the other sides, or that sort of thing. Like, if you want creativity, you should promote passing it to different like areas, or having a bunch of movement from the players. Like, the coaches have always said that they want to help me, so my thought was to have them talk to one of my skills coaches. I was working on setting up that meeting with the two coaches, and we were able to find a date. Okay, I don't have the text on me because I think I deleted that thread. It was James who texted, "See you at 10:30," and that was texted at about 9:55 or so. So that was 30 minutes before the meeting was set to take place. And then I got a call from Mike telling me that he had canceled the meeting 30 minutes before it was supposed to happen. Like, are you fucking kidding me? I have a right to set up a meeting with these coaches, and by the way, they agreed to it. So what's wrong with that? Then Mike talked about that they don't have the time for it. They don't have the time to meet up with me because they're busy with some other things, like bringing in players or setting up the practice plan, like stuff that doesn't affect whether or not I should or should not have this meeting. So I basically convinced him to make it happen, because that's honestly a joke to have other players meet with their coaches and not me meet with the coaches for whatever reason. If you want me to be coached, by the way, to be a good defenseman, I should be able to talk to your coaches to get better. Mike had ordered all the coaches to make sure that the players get to like a family or like whatever for Thanksgiving. In the prior weeks beforehand, I had talked to my parents about staying at the apartment that I was in by myself, just to like wind down from everything that happened in my season up until then. And what I found out was that my mom had actually stayed in her dorm for a Thanksgiving one time. And I'm like, hey, so it's okay to be alone for Thanksgiving, because it's something that just happens. Like, you can spend time with families any time of the year. Like, it has to be, for some reason, for us, it has to be just this stupid holiday. But, like, oh yeah, this was at the time that I was working on my ACT too. And, like, that was stressed me out on its own. So, when I told that to Mike, he basically ignored what I had said about me being okay about being alone. Granted, I didn't bring my mom into the equation because I didn't think I had to. I'm pretty sure, though, I brought up that, hey, my mom had stayed alone for a Thanksgiving one time, so I've accepted that that's okay for me to do. And he kept insisting that, like, I go to someone's house. I don't know if it was this conversation, like during the Thanksgiving thing, that this happened, but at some point during that first month, I brought up that I am naturally an introvert based on what happened earlier in my life, which I didn't explain to him what happened, and I feel like I don't need to. But he's kept saying to me that that's a choice that I made to be an introvert, which, by the way, Mike, no, it's not. It's not at all a choice that I made. And it's not even an extreme thing. It's just, I like being alone. And that's actually what helps me get better at hockey. Is because I don't like hanging out with people naturally. I like being alone naturally, so it helps me focus more on my own things. That's not to say that I don't hang out every once in a while with people. It's just what I do. And to criticize that and to not even look at what I do, just to say words like that and not put in any effort to like look at what I do, is part of why I can't take you seriously, and part of why other people can't take you seriously on matters like that. I'm pretty sure introversion is not a choice. I'm pretty sure depression is not a choice. I'm pretty sure anxiety is not a choice. I'm pretty sure stress isn't a choice. Ways to handle that is a choice, but having those things come up is not a choice. And that's the same thing with being introverted. By the way, if you want to say that we should accept everyone on this team for being different, you can't say that introversion's a bad choice that I made. Because that's called being a hypocrite. And people can't take hypocrites seriously. I don't remember exactly when I got scratched during this time, but really the reasons were unclear. This was also at a time where my groin injury from last year was coming back up and it was affecting my skating a little bit. So I ended up taking like a week off or so, and it got better. And when I asked James one time, like, hey, like, why am I scratched? Like, he brought up, well, I'm concerned about your groin. I remember telling him at one of the practices before the game that I was scratched for that my groin felt fine, that I could play with it. I remember telling him that specifically. So why is that a reason for me being scratched? Why is that the first reason for me being scratched, by the way? Like, they did bring up that I need to fix my, like, attitude, which they mean by that was that I do tend to get frustrated. I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons that can go into that frustration. It's, like, not as simple as saying, oh yeah, you need to control your emotions. But by the way, if you're a coach, you'd be able to actually coach that. It's not like just saying that doesn't help, but like whatever. They brought that up. At some point during that conversation, I brought up what I do for Train 2.0, and I brought that up because I wasn't sure if they were getting the message that I do a lot of work behind the scenes to make myself a better hockey player. So eventually the assistant, Brian, came out to me, and this was like sort of our first conversation with the Train 2.0 stuff. I wouldn't call it an argument. Other people would. But here's why I don't call it an argument. Even though there were points about saying that it's a scam, or like me saying it's not. Stuff like that can sound like an argument, but really it isn't. There was nothing personal in it. It was just like, hey, just go to us for help instead of this guy. He also kept bringing up that you have this guy in Mike who has all this experience in hockey, who's been around hockey for like 50 years or so, and has like won all these titles and has worked as a scout in the NHL. And then you have me, Brian, who's like won in Division 1 or whatever, or maybe that was James, I don't know. But point being, he kept bringing up that prior experience and making it seem like it's a valid point for why players should go to them for help with their hockey. I remember right at the end of the conversation, I said, basically, I am doing this because I want to get better. There was silence for 3 seconds or so. Brian came up to me and said, okay, have a good day. Give me a little, like, pats on the back or shoulders or whatever, and just walked away. I just said I want to get better, and you walk away from that and go to only us for help instead of this guy. That conversation, though, was sort of the last time that Brian talked to me as one of his players. Let's just say it that way. I don't think he texted me after that conversation, whereas he's texted like every other player. What I mean by that is that he hasn't texted me directly, like just me and him. The last text I have from him is November 14th. And like another thing, this goes back with the ACT. They knew that I was stressing about it, and yet they didn't respond to me when I texted them my final score. I literally have a text to them, all three of them, in a group chat that I made, saying my ACT score is 23. Nothing below it is from them. The rest of the texts are from me. If you knew I was stressing out about the ACT, then why not like have a little, at least acknowledgement that I got that score and that it was over with, and so that I wouldn't be as stressed out about it. Like, part of acknowledging that the stress is off my shoulders is acknowledging with me that it's done and over with. And there was no text at all, even after like I got that final score. Whereas with my parents, on the other hand, they responded right away. Like, what was that about? And like this goes back to another point. That's part of having reinforcement not just positive or negative reinforcement. That's just having any reinforcement. You guys knew I was stressing out about that, yet you didn't respond to me when I gave you my final score. Like, where is there any sense and logic in that? Could have said, oh, good job, we'll put that in the thing, or even just good job, like that. And I know you guys have talked about, like, if you do your job, you shouldn't have to, like, know what they did well. But, like, if you were a good coach and you saw these good plays and you just said, good job, that's not a good coach. A good coach would say and describe what they did well and not just point out the times that they messed up. And if you want a positive and winning and realistic environment, that is how you do it. And that's also part of the reason that you have less than 10 wins in your league games. You don't acknowledge what your players do well. So if you want to actually win, start from there. It's one of your foundations. When I mentioned to them about what I was doing behind the scenes of Train 2.0, I had a feeling that you guys would disagree with what I was doing, but I did not expect, and I did not want to hear that I was doing too much to make myself a better hockey player, and that I should be only going to you guys for help, when in fact I found out later that you did not have the time to help me. At some point, Brian and I had another conversation about Train 2.0 stuff. He brought up that he saw the McDavid video, and he brought up the fact that he wide tracks, which if you look at him closer, like in a slow motion video, you can see that they're not actually pushes, he's just stepping out wide. What's making him do that is his hips twist and orient in different ways to make him do that. There's no like active pushing. Anyway, we talked for, I want to say, at least 5 minutes about stuff related to that. He did bring up the scam part again, in that he found that Train 2.0 and what Jason was doing was a scam. And I remember saying, yeah, I know. And I think he gave me like a weird look. I'm pretty sure I didn't say anything after that related to that. He brought up something else. Conversation still went on. This was during practice, by the way. At some point when we were talking about feel, Brian brought up that the feel of skating is the same or very similar to the feel of snorting cocaine. And even then, he brought up earlier in the conversation that like he was a kinesiologist just like Jason, or that he studied that too. But you say that and say that you studied kinesiology. How the fuck am I supposed to take you seriously if you say that? I get it. Field-based learning is across any spectrum. But the feel of taking fucking cocaine or any fucking other drug is not the same thing as skating. That is fucking retarded to say. And it's stupid. And I'm glad I stopped taking you seriously after you said that. As a hockey coach, if you want to be taken seriously and teach your players something about hockey, this is absolutely not how you do it. And for me, I'm trying to get better. So if this stupid shit is said when I'm trying to get better and I'm serious about getting better, how am I supposed to take Brian seriously here? And I really wouldn't be this pissed off if they didn't coach me. That is when I stopped taking you seriously. Is that I can't say enough how stupid that is. It's literally two different things. Skating is like its own thing. So is cocaine. I get that. which is what makes them different fields. Oh, by the way, you would be fired if you said something like that. But because you have that job security from working with your dad, you obviously don't have to worry about that. So you can say something like that, whether you mean it or not, and get away with it. So, again, there's nothing wrong with saying it. But how are players supposed to take you seriously if you say stuff like that and also, on top of that, just constantly like chirp or argue with them instead of like having good conversations with them? Which, when I tried to have them with you, you just walked away. And you say that when you've studied kinesiology, or you say that like, I don't know if you have. I mean, because for one, never heard you talk about it with the players. That, by the way, you constantly chirp. And two, you always talk about this hockey stuff and this push thing and push that and always being in this position and ready. Like, no kinesiology terms whatsoever are in your language. Whereas with Jason, if you just listen to him talk during one of his like long webinars or long presentations, he's always bringing up like valgus knee alignment or like shoulder sling or like inner spring or bunch of other terms. Like, you don't have to listen to him for very long and he'll bring up something related to kinesiology. But my point is, he's actually studied it and he's put the time and effort into it, and you may have as well, but it's more obvious with Jason. And saying that the feel of cocaine is the same as the feel of skating tells me that you probably haven't. And like, another thing, I mentioned that you always chirp your players. They've always said to me that, like the whole year, that they don't take you seriously. And that's not me saying it. That's everyone saying that. Every one of the players saying that. I remember you saying after my first game with you guys that you wanted to be a better coach. You told that to your dad, which, by the way, you work for your dad. Like, that's great and all, but you're too attached to him. First off, that's why you're not an effective coach. First off, you're always yelling at your players and saying that you're right. Again, doesn't make you effective. You're always late to the practices. Like, even when you have the time to go earlier, even if you're busy, like recruiting a player to show them like the locker room or all, you're still late. Like, going to a coach with a successful resume is like going to like a good school that a bunch of people have graduated from. Like, the same risk as at everything. There's no guarantees, and you shouldn't be promising anything, by the way. That goes for all three of those bozos. But, and by the way, like, no one cares that you played against guys like Paul Correa or that sort of those players, or that you broke a bunch of people's jaws one time by just hitting them. No one cares if you hold on to that past as much as they care about what you teach them. Like, that's just the truth. I remember, like, you're always looking at video. Like, you constantly say it. You're up at late at night watching video. Like, by the way, what are you watching? Are you just watching positioning? Because it definitely sounds like it from what you always talk about. Like, there's so much more to video than just seeing where guys are at specific times. And by the way, that's what I use it for. You never watch me use it. Whatever. None of you guys watch me. Like, watch myself. By the way, I use video to dissect my mechanics. I use video to see how I move. I use video to compare myself to NHLers. Like, there's so much more to using video than seeing where a player is on the ice at a specific time. Or at least you should give yourself that freedom to do that and explore what else video has to offer for hockey. Sure, you're up at 3 in the morning watching video. Again, what are you watching? I find it really childish that you say stuff like you're upset at the players saying that you guys gave up on them when there's a bunch of evidence to suggest that, including trading your captain and leading goal scorer and always sending players down to the premier team just because they have a good record. Like, that's really the only reason that you're sending them down, is so that they can win a championship. Like, who fucking cares? But from what I can tell, you're incredibly insecure with how you hold on to your experience, how big your ego is, how you don't listen to your players, how you always yell at your players, how you're not patient with your players, and how with me, you talk about what I'm doing is a scam and that I should only be going to you for help with hockey. Like, no, clearly you don't have enough time to help us out. It's upsetting to see you upset at that when you don't acknowledge the evidence to suggest the guys thinking that. They have reasons to say you guys gave up on them. Okay, so what are those reasons to suggest that your players would be upset at you for seemingly quitting on you? Well, for one, didn't you guys just trade your captain? Didn't you guys just trade your leading point scorer? 2 players right there. Both have letters on their jerseys. Both are very vocal in the locker room. Both are very good friends with everyone. Both care in their own way. So, to trade them away, by the way, means you guys failed them. And that trading them was the only way to help them at this point. That means up until this point, you guys did not help them succeed. Those 2, John and George. You guys did not help them up until the point you traded them. Even before that, you guys have always talked to us about systems. Like, everything needs to be in like this system format, and we need to only follow a system to be successful, essentially. And that there's no room for creativity or skill or any of that. You're indirectly suggesting that, by the way, with the systems that you have in place. And if we can read out and memorize the systems and then continue to tell them to you and not execute them on the ice, what does that suggest? To me, that suggests a lack of skill. That isn't a motivation problem. That isn't a willingness to get better problem. That is simply just a lack of skill. And when I was there, you guys basically did not teach any skating. You had 20 to 30 minutes. The whole time I was there, that was the only time you taught skating. Now, I don't know if you taught it before I got there in September, October, but there's no reason to not teach skating throughout the whole year. Because what I've learned about skating is that it leads to everything else. If you can work on skating like the best NHLers, your skill will improve dramatically, and then you'll be able to execute the systems. What you guys are doing is a systems first approach, which actually will stint development if the players are not skilled enough, which they weren't. And that's why they've lost all those games. That's why you guys have less than 10 league wins. Because, like I said, every single one of them can tell you what specific system things to you that you want them to tell you, like a freaking classroom, but they can't execute them because they're not good skaters. And by the way, skating is something you can see more than effort or willingness to get better or passion or drive, motivation, like anything of that mental nature. Because skating is something that if you study enough, you can see right away, pinpoint what they're doing that's not the same as what an NHL is doing, and then be able to correct that so that they match their expert model NHLer. Now, notice how I didn't say there was a right or wrong to this process, because really there isn't, and there shouldn't. There's no right or wrong way to play hockey. I'm just going to say that right now. If you want players to actually develop, you need to take right and wrong out of hockey. That's why I've been talking about ineffective coaches instead of bad coaches. That's why I've been talking about not good skaters instead of bad players. That's why I've been talking about skating leads to skill instead of playing the right way, which, by the way, is not specific. If you were to teach players skating and match their mechanics to the best NHLers, you would make them so much better players, and you probably wouldn't be having trouble like getting to them. Because, by the way, if you can have them skate like the best NHLers, they might want to play more. It's just a suggestion. I don't know if it would happen, but it's a possibility, just like anything else. Something to think about. So why not do that instead of teaching systems that you can learn anywhere? And really, you can learn systems anywhere. You can't learn skill everywhere. You can learn systems anywhere. You can't learn skating everywhere. You can't learn skill everywhere. You can't learn NHL mechanics anywhere. I guess that's more of a criticism of the system's format that not just this team has, but that every team has nowadays. Like, this system that I'm in, and by the way, there's a reason that it's not called a program. It's because it's called a system. It's because it's ongoing. Just like positional systems, like, they're ongoing as well. Like, they don't just stop for a week. It's not like a camp. It just keeps going. I don't know. I'm tired of seeing players get screwed over by people who just hold on to experience and their brand in some cases, like this one, instead of wanting to learn and evolve and adapt to new times and adapt to something new, and also not do research themselves, and they'll focus on what the skating looks like instead of what it feels like. That's basically why I'm coaching, is because, again, I'm tired of seeing this. By the way, if I'm telling you about this 22.0 stuff, and when I respond to you saying that it's a scam, that I say, yeah, I know, then it's probably not a scam. And just to let you know, Jason has a money-back guarantee in the downhill skating system. So, as far as I can tell, you did not go to the website. You did not check out the webinar. You didn't even cash up an extra $400 to try out the system for 30 days. You could have gotten your money back with how you cling on to your experiences. So, you would have gotten your money back. But my point is, you didn't even try to look into something that I've been working on, that when I respond to you saying that it's a scam, that, yeah, I know, but I'm working on it, that you don't even go out and try it for yourself, that you don't even go out to skate and see and feel how you move, record yourself on how you move, see past videos of yourself moving, then obviously nothing's changed. And you can call it a scam all you want. Like, nothing's stopping you from doing that. But again, you didn't even try to look into what it is. So, how are people supposed to take your review of that seriously? And something else that I just remembered too, when I was starting to move out, when I came back to pack up my things, I remember my roommates Luca and Nolan saying to me that Brian said to them that he didn't want to see me at the rink. I don't know what kind of tone that was in. I don't know if he was angry or just, I don't want to deal with this. But regardless, that's something that he said. And that just shows more of his insecurity because, by the way, it's a public rink and anyone's allowed in there. So there's certain people don't want to see. Like, that goes with everyone. But can't just cry about it. Can't complain to, like, only certain people and talk behind people's back if you want to be family. Brian's used Luca and Nolan to a lesser extent to talk to me and talk about the team or just vent, because I guess he's close with Luca. Like, that'd be like a logical reason. He told Luca about being upset at the players saying that they think the coaches quit on them. So to me, it just shows more insecurity. To me, it shows more clinging on to past experience than trying to evolve and talk it out like an adult with your players. You're 20 years older than me and you don't want to talk to me. Like, I remember also, I waited for you outside of one of the doors at the rink after I said bye to James one last time. Granted, I was looking down at my phone at this time. You walked past me, gave me a little, "Hey Mason, how are you doing?" Kept walking, did your thing. And that was it. Look, I didn't go up to you after that. Okay. But I gave you a chance to talk to me. You walked away. Just like I gave you a chance to have a conversation with me about the Train 2.0 stuff. You took it as me arguing with you. Again, insecurity. Hanging on to experience. Immaturity. You're 20 years older than me. You shouldn't be worried about that. I did not walk away from the conversations that we had too. You would always say something during our conversations that you would then, right after saying it, you'd turn away. And by the way, you do the same thing when you're chirping the players. When I was trying to have a conversation, which you can, granted, let you walk away at any time, but shows no maturity, shows insecurity, and look, let you do that. But again, keeps going back to you taking everything as an argument or an attack to your experience. When in really, like, look, I was the one who had nothing to lose, because what kind of experience do I have? I'm just a 20-year-old from California who likes hockey and who's played hockey, who's played Tier 3 juniors. Like, no one's going to give me credit for that. And now I'm starting to coach after that and actually make players better, like, right after that. Like who would come to me, right? Whereas, like, I'm not convinced that you have this experience, because during our practices you'd always be standing in the middle of the ice or still talking to the players once the whistle blows and the play starts. But regardless, you have experience. Like, people would go to you, and you have a dad who's been a scout in the NHL. Like, people would go to him for that experience. Like, I get that. But after they go to you, they're going to find out that you cling on to that experience. They're going to find out what's actually separate from that experience. That's what makes you the type of coach that you are. And that's what I found out with all three of you guys. And again, I'll go back to this too. Brian has not texted me since November 14th. And I was still on the team until mid-January. Like, if I'm a player on your team, shouldn't you be texting me or, like, checking in on me? If we were family, shouldn't you be checking in on me? If you guys actually cared about that, since being family is one of your signatures. Like, those two don't line up. You say you being a family, and you don't text one of your players. I've been FaceTiming my parents the whole time I've been away, and got nothing from you guys for a month and a half. At least, like, directly from Brian. Sorry. Like, directly, me and Brian is what I meant, with him not texting me since November 14th. And by the way, if you want to be a good coach, like you said on my first game that I was there, what you said to your dad, the first step is to not work with your dad anymore. Because I can see that he has you attached to strings. And that's not to say that you can't still use his ideas or use his help. But you're one of his puppets. That's step one, is to step away from that. That will help you to step away from your prior experience also. And two is to start allowing yourself to be more creative, is to allow yourself to listen to your players. And I think you gotta teach skating, but that's just me. That's my style. And in order to teach skating, you have to actually research it. Like, those power skating books are 20 years old. They're not gonna work for today's game. So those are the steps that you start out with to actually become an effective coach. And another thing too, you gotta stop chirping your players, because then people will take you seriously. Like, sure, have fun with them once in a while, keep the mood light, but don't have a constant barrage of them. Because then, if you keep chirping, they won't take you seriously and chirp back, then you keep chirping, then it just continues. It's called a positive feedback loop. So, those are the steps that you start out with to become an effective coach, like you said you wanted to be. Like, also, I've had a conversation with Jason about integrity. Like, I've missed deadlines that I promised to him that I would meet for certain things. I admitted that I did not stick to my word. You should admit your responsibilities, and if you can't stick to your word, apologize for it. See what actions you will take to prevent that from happening again. I mean, that's where I would start out with, but if you don't want to listen to me because you don't want to see me at your rink, then fine, don't listen to me. 20 years younger than you too. Like, don't listen to me. Do whatever you want. But the market of the hockey world will determine if you're worth giving your gift of teaching hockey. So we'll see how it goes. So, come back, we have basically exhibition games against some Canadian teams for a little tournament that they had there. And that was my last game, basically. This is where basically everything fell off a cliff, so to speak. So I played the first game. And again, these games don't count towards our record, so like regardless, like we head into the weekend. By the way, we lose all 3 of our games, so there's that. Played the first game, and I didn't get emotional once for the first time all year. And I told that to James after the game that, hey, I didn't get emotional. That's great. And I couldn't tell you what he said, but later that night for our second game, I was scratched for a non-league game. So I was understandably upset. And like all this time that I've been scratched, granted, I only asked once about clarification for why I was scratched. So like that's something that I should have been doing after every game that I was scratched. So, something that I went up to, something that I wish I could have done differently. But I carried that anger that I had into the next game where I was in scratched again. And remember, we lost all 3 of our games, so that didn't help with my frustration. And I remember that I didn't talk to anyone. I was probably the most frustrated and resentful that I was. But let's just talk about what happened, because that's just a story. So I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't say a word until the game started. I still showed up at the rink. They play their game. Every once in a while I'd scream at a play that I saw, and then they lose. Everyone gets back to the locker room. I'm basically staring at the floor. And then they made us do like the 100 push-ups and the 100 jump ropes. Right when they said that was when I started to stare at a wall. And again, I'll stand by that this was the most frustrated and angry that I was in my life. But that's just my story. It's not what happened. But what did happen was that I stared at a wall the whole time that the rest of the team went out to obey the coach's orders, essentially. And one thing about the 100 push-ups and the 100 jump ropes is that I think it's just to satisfy the coaches for something. Like, it really doesn't teach anything about hockey besides maybe work ethic, but you can work hard anywhere. Like, that's not hard to do. And like I think it's to make the coaches feel in control and to feel powerful. Like, that's it. Because really all they have to do is see someone who's they think is slacking off and say, hey, pick it up, or something like that. And like really, there's so many ways to develop players, and you're taking one of the slower routes. You're taking one of the more obsolete routes. Like, there's enough research now to overwrite all of that. There's enough stuff that works now that will develop players exponentially instead of linearly and then cut off at a certain point, that you don't need to constantly do 100 push-ups and 100 jump ropes. Like, and even then, that's like poor conditioning. You have these like bikes that are in the gym that you can sprint on for like 30 seconds or however you do your conditioning at a time. And like it's more effective for conditioning than jump ropes and push-ups. So apparently Mike talked to them after like they finished all that. I don't know what he said. Like I don't even care either. Like again, I was just staring at a wall. Wait, then so by the time everyone came back, they like were checking in on me to see if I was okay. Not responding. At some point, I walked into the bathroom. Our Captain John was in there. Then he said something that was very eye-opening, which is that the systems that Mike teaches and that the rest of the coaches teaches is outdated. Granted, didn't say that it doesn't work or that it didn't work. Just said that it's outdated. So I said, yeah, I agree with you. And then him and I talked a little bit. He said for me to go talk to the coaches, which I then did. James was waiting there for me. And he asked, how do you feel? I said, I am extremely frustrated. Then I went to talk to Mike. Brian and Sean were there. James walked with me to their meeting. I was expecting them to like shit on me. And they really didn't. Mike brings up that I needed to see a psychologist or that sort of thing, and I just played along with it, just listened to him. Then at the end of the conversation, he asked me what was frustrating me. I brought up something hockey related, forward angling, is what I said. Then Mike said, no, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about hockey stuff. I gave him a stern look, and I don't know if I looked at Brian. I think I did. I think I looked back at Brian like that, and back at Mike. And I threw up my hands, shook his hand, stormed out, and back into our locker room, and texted all three of them. Thank you for telling me you don't have the time to talk about hockey stuff I need to know with me. I'll gladly keep talking to my other coaches about that. I get it now. It's not a grammatically good like comment, but like what the fuck? Like first of all, like what the fuck? You guys asked me what was frustrating me. I tell you something that's frustrating me and then you don't want to talk about it. Also, the reasons for my frustrations weren't reasons that a fucking psychiatrist would solve. I'd have to talk to you guys about it because my frustrations were with you guys. So why not talk about it like fucking adults for once? I am so glad that I found other coaches who actually put in the time to do their homework and that I have a good relationship with, which is part of the reason why I'm back in where I was last year. Because where is the logic in asking me what's frustrating me, then saying we can't talk about it after I bring up something that's frustrating me? Like, fuck you. That is fucking stupid. That's logically... That is... It's stupid to do that. It's not family. It's not caring for someone. It's just throwing them away. Which, by the way, you did with me. One of their mantras that they want to be like a family. How the fuck is that being a family? I talk to my parents constantly about like what the hell's going on in my life. And yet you don't want to do that with me. Like, how is that being a family? If you can muster out a shitty explanation out of that, I would love to see it. Because there's absolutely no logic in something like that. Let me just remind you. You asked me what was frustrating me. I tell you something that's frustrating me. You say you can't talk about it. No fucking logic at all. It gets to later that night. I get a call from my parents. They mentioned that Mike had talked to them and that they were going to send my dad out on a red eye. Keep in mind, we had to pay for the flight. And this was taking time out of my dad's work. So, understandably, my parents are like, what the fuck's going on? Because they're all the way on the other side of the country. It's not like basically every other kid where they're on the East Coast and one guy from Colorado, but it's not as easy as you say it is. Mike, by the way, you probably get paid to fly everywhere, or at least you did. We have to pay the airliner to fly out like this. So my dad comes the first day that he's here. He helped me make sense of the whole shit situation. So, I mean, could have done that over the phone, but it was nice to have him in person too. Then planned out a time to talk to Mike, and the next day, right before our practice, we met with Mike and James and Brian. Turns out that was not a good conversation, or that wasn't a fair conversation. That wasn't a nice conversation. That wasn't a pleasant conversation. That was very... Mike did all the talking, basically. I don't think James or Brian said a word. Granted, they did let my dad and myself talk a little bit. But, again, just for a little bit. Mike did most of the talking. It took them basically 40 minutes to say that they were going to send me home. And, again, we had to pay for the flight back. That was around when Brian said, hey, this thing shouldn't upset you. I broke down in tears. When they said that. And first of all, how the fuck's that not supposed to upset me? I'm being sent away home, not playing hockey, which I sought out to do. That's why I'm on the East Coast, away from freaking home on the other side of the country. Of course I'm going to be upset. Brian, explain to me how that should not upset me. Because, by the way, it has. And now I'm not playing anymore, but besides the point. You're a bad coach. Fuck you. So, James and Brian went to go do their practice. Oh, by the way, they said I was still on the team when they were talking about this. We'll get into that later. But that's what they said during this conversation. Again, I don't remember the details of it, but I do remember texting them. Here's what I texted them. My dad and I were not appreciative of the fact that this was planned before our meeting and that you didn't let us talk much. If you guys want to be a family, we need to decide this stuff together. Actually together, not behind closed doors. I've listened to you, but now it's time for you to hear me so that we can be on the same. From now on, anything that we mention of each other, we will tell exactly that to each other so that we can be on the same page and a fucking family. I will tell you what I do to you guys because I have nothing to lose. And then here I sent them a little breakdown of the Train 2.0 stuff, my video feedback, actually recording myself and looking at different NHLers, mechanics, and that sort of thing. And then I also sent them a little clip analysis of inside foot shooting, as they call it. I call it something else because it's better for me to understand it, and that I don't believe just saying inside foot shooting is specific enough. So, sent them those two videos. They did not watch it. And those videos have 15, 20 views on them because I always look over them and I was looking over them to make sure that it's on par with what I want to say, and that's why it has all those views. I also sent them to my roommates and a couple of teammates to make sure that the quality was okay and that I wasn't saying anything offensive. Oh yeah, this is when they sent me back home halfway across the country and had us pay for our flight. Just to remind you on that, that's what happened as well. While I'm home, they sent me home for 2 weeks. At least that's what they said. And that I'd still be on the team and that sort of thing. By the way, small little details. They didn't make sure if I landed safely. They didn't make sure that I got home. None of that. There's no text for that or anything. Oh, and in between that, during that week, I was watching their practices just to keep up with what they're doing, and so that I'd be ready to see what they had to offer when I'd fly back. So around the 15th, I texted all three of them. We're free for a meeting within the next couple days. And by the way, my parents were upset to see me back, not because of me or what I did, but because of the situation. They would be upset at me for that sort of thing. But the week went by, I texted them that, and then because we wanted to set up a meeting, all three of us. And oh yeah, this is when I went to the doctor to get cleared up, so that we'd have on record that I wasn't crazy or gonna hurt myself or anyone, that I wasn't a threat to that that stupid stuff. I text that, none of them respond, and then my dad said he was gonna text them. I said, okay, go ahead. Mike, I hope you are having a good week. Mason has had a good opportunity at home to train, stay connected with the team, and meet with his doctor. Everything I did. He is cleared to play with a note from his doctor. Which, by the way, as soon as he texted that, I sent that to them. They didn't respond. We would like to have a phone call with you when you are available to sync up. Let us know what time works best for you in the next few days. No response. Then the next day, Mike, I hope all is well. Trying again to see if we can have a phone call. Mason has a note from his doctor and is cleared to play and will be returning to Worcester Sunday, which, by the way, we rescheduled that because my parents knew that I was okay. Because they're my parents and they know me. He is reaching out to the coaches to sync up as well, which I did because I had that text before and they didn't respond. I don't know if it was that night or the next night. Mike left a message to my dad saying that he was offended by our plan and my message to them. They found a time to talk, just the three of them. I don't have details of that conversation. My parents got to know who Mike really was. That weekend, we eventually agreed that it'd probably be best for me to not play with the team, but we should still listen to Mike and that sort of thing. What Mike was also offended with was the text that I sent them, the one where I said that my dad and I were not appreciative of the conversation that we had. By the way, what the fuck's offensive in that text? I'll read it out to you again. My dad and I were not appreciative of the fact that this was planned before our meeting, and you guys didn't let us talk much. If you guys want to be family, we need to decide this stuff together, actually together. Nothing behind closed doors. I've listened to you, but now it's time for you to listen to me, so that we can be on the same page. From now on, anything that we mention of each other, we will tell exactly that to each other, so that we can be on the same page and a family. I will tell you what I do to you guys because I have nothing to lose. Sent them the videos, which, by the way, they didn't watch. Just a reminder. What's offensive in that text? I would seriously like to know. I get it. It's a long text. But you can still read it. Mike, I've seen you read text and respond to text. So there's no reason to not read this thing. What's offensive in that text? I wouldn't know. Because, like, look. I remember you saying that you don't get offended by things. That was when I apologized to you for yelling at you for you canceling the meeting 30 minutes before it happened, but then not canceling it and letting Mel meet with my coach Frank. I remember apologizing to you for that, and you saying that you don't get offended by anything. Like, so what's offensive about this? That we don't, like, listen to you, or that, like, what? Because, I mean, really, the only people who would be offended by something like that are people who are afraid to lose their brand or their reputation or their experience, what they're known for. The people who know me best, people who actually care about me, know that I'm not crazy, and I'm crazy at the same time, but not gonna, like, hurt anyone. Being obsessed with hockey. But that shouldn't be a bad thing. And they also know that something is flawed with you guys from actually making hockey players better. That this ended up with me being factually and logically correct on lots of occurrences when you denied them. What's offensive about that text? If you see this and actually respond to it, respond to it. What's offensive about that text, Mike? I will gladly send it to you again. I don't have you blocked. I don't know if you do to me, because you and those other guys haven't responded to me, so how, like, am I supposed to not assume that you guys don't have me blocked? Which, by the way, those 3 guys didn't text me the whole time that I was back. I don't know how many times I need to remind you guys of that, but, like, how is that supposed to be family if you don't text or call or respond to my calls about setting up a meeting, which, by the way, I called each coach individually to set up a call, and I even joked with Mike about it. I'm like, hey, Mike, how's it going? I would like to set up, oh, that's unfortunate. Well, I'm free for a call because I have plenty of time to call. Like, I actually sent that to him, and not afraid to say it. If that was offensive, like, okay, then say it. But you haven't said anything about what offended you that I said. So how am I supposed to know what offended you? Like, just say what offended you. I don't have a problem with you saying that. But clearly you're afraid to say it. So why not just fucking say it? What, because I'm just going to respond? Like, I'll have a conversation. Don't shy away from that. By the way, it's because of this hypocrisy that Mike said that he wasn't offended by anything, and then he's suddenly offended by something like this just because we didn't follow what he wanted us to do, like his own plan, and not knowing me personally and how I process the world and what's going on in hockey and everything else there, that I do not believe their emotion of being offended is actually real. Like, I think it's because they didn't want to deal with me because I cared so much, and like they just didn't want to deal with that for whatever reason. If you want to let me know what offended you about that text, I don't have you blocked, so you can call me anytime. Right now though, I'm working a lot, so like, who knows if I have time, but I'll respond to your call eventually. Leave myself open to that. So that's called being an adult. By the way, I don't care about being a man. I care about being an adult. And not texting your player when he was sent home, when you guys ordered him to go home. and not responding to his calls about setting up a meeting. And, like, how is that being an adult? Like, honestly. And, like, later I found out about James, though, that, like, he wanted to keep his job because he specifically said he was instructed and ordered to not respond to me. So, like, obviously he wants to keep his job and work for the team. So, like, good on him. Sure, I told him I'd do the same thing. I mean, like, I still think that saying that and then, like, James, you could have still responded to me. Like, you didn't have to do that. But, like, if you were, like, actually family or with the team, like, clearly that told me that I wasn't on the team. But, like, sure. I was one of your players. You said it was a pleasure to have me, so why didn't you text me back? Clearly it wasn't a pleasure. Would have been better for you to say that. Would have shown you more guts to say that. Oh yeah, in between this time, like between the 15th and the next Wednesday, I was finding out that my name was not in the lineup, like anywhere, not even in the list of scratches or that sort of thing. So my name wasn't in there when someone else's name was, who had a season-ending injury. Like, his name was in there and mine wasn't. So, like, what the fuck? First of all. And then this is when I sent a series of texts through our group message thing called Sports U. I kept asking them, why is my name not anywhere on the lineup card? I kept putting that in the comments. They deleted at least 2 of them. The third one, I texted them as well. What's offensive about my question? Why is my name not even on the not in the lineup section? Am I on the team or no? And I kept asking them because a guy whose season was over, who had a like just a terrible broken ankle, like his name was in there. He wasn't gonna play for the rest of the season, and mine wasn't. So my logic was, I'm probably not on the team. I didn't know that for sure, but my name wasn't anywhere to be found. So that's why I sent all those texts. In our last call with Mike, he brought up that, oh yeah, I was sending a series of texts after, like, we mentioned that, yeah, we're done with you guys. We want a refund and we want to get Mason out of there. So he mentioned that a little bit. My parents did play it off because, for one, they didn't want to deal with it. And Mike really didn't want to talk about the refund. He just wanted to talk about all those texts. He wanted to talk about me bringing up Columbine, which, by the way, I did, and I want to apologize. That was something that we made up based on the prior conversation that my parents had with you, Mike. That was something that we made up because it sounded like you were heading in that direction with you saying that I was, like, crazier, and with you wanting me to see a psychiatrist or talk to my therapist, which, by the way, you have no right to because I'm 20 now and my medical history is my medical history. Now, granted, that would seem like me not wanting to be family with you guys, but I don't have to share it if I don't want to. And especially because I don't trust you guys, wasn't going to, and I'm not going to. And I get it. It's hard to stay private nowadays, but I don't have to share it if I don't want to. Who knows? I probably would have been off the team anyway, even if I did tell you everything, because you don't listen to me, and you don't even read text. Like, you don't even have to listen to me. You just need to read the text. You don't even do that. You just say, oh yeah, I'm just sending text. Well, fucking read the actual text. Another thing. Like, one of the last things I sent in Sports U was, my frustrations are with you, Mel, Brian, and Mike. Just because of that does not mean I'll be the next Columbine or hurt myself. Because I'm 20, I have the right to not disclose my medical history to you. Own up to the fact that you have not reached out or responded to me the whole time that I was gone. You did not. Own up to it. Own up to the fact that you do not respect me or the guys on the teams, and it shows when you compare me to a school shooter or when you compare the feeling of skating to the feeling of cocaine. Granted, they did not compare me to a school shooter, but they were heading in that direction with what they implied. And by the way, that was me bringing up what Brian said about our one of our Train 2.0 conversations. Own up to the fact that your prior experience in hockey means nothing if you don't want to learn anything new or develop players for where the game is going. That might be offensive, sure, but you can't put your emotion of being offended into something like that. Especially when there's a fact that people don't care about your experience. Less so than your attitude towards them, or if you follow your word. Own up to the fact that you wanted me so badly, yet you failed to help me. You guys did not help me. Own up to it. Own up to the fact that your family first motto forces life lessons instead of teaching them naturally. They do. Mike always talks about that he's a family first who wants to teach life lessons, which what I mean by him forcing life lessons is something like him saying that my introversion is a choice, or just screaming at players to like tell them that they have no desire to get better, or like that sort of thing, like, or sending me home when I didn't listen to you. Like, by the way, I just disagreed with you. Like, you don't have to, like, that's, I just disagreed with you. That happens. If we were a fucking family, we'd sort it out, and then continue playing. Own up to the fact that I care about learning the mechanics of NHL superstars more than you. That's a fact. Own up to it. Own up to the fact that I can easily keep going with this. You tell me nothing by deleting or not responding to this thread. So say it. That was my last text in Sports U. I get it. There could be some things that are offensive, but like I said, you can't get anything done if you're just offended by everything. You would think that, like, I would go back and just pick up my stuff and go. But like I said, I discovered that James was ordered to not talk to me. I indirectly gave Brian the chance to talk to me, and he just continued walking. Granted, again, looking down at my phone at the time he walked out, but didn't stop to like say bye. And then I did talk to Sean, by the way, Sean Bertoni, which, by the way, my dad really liked the conversation with him, and I told that to him. He said, "Oh, thank you." He apologized for not responding to my text, and it was just a little thank you to him. The next day, I talked to Mike for the last time in person, and so there was a situation in my apartment where one of the guys had to move into a place, and it just so happened to be the apartment that I was in. So we got that situation sorted out, by the way, so he's living there. Then I just hung out with him a little bit. We traded sleeping on the couch until I left. It was all fine. So keep that in mind. Go to talk to Mike. he was more concerned about that situation than seeing if I was okay. He was more worried about my texts sounding threatening. Like, he was just more worried about that. Like, so Mike was more worried about that situation, and he was more worried about that situation. Prior to that, he was more worried about seeing if my parents were actually good parents, or which fuck you, by the way, they're effective parents, and I love them, and fuck you for saying that. Like, more concerned about my apartment situation and calling my parents bad parents than seeing if I was okay, or seeing if I enjoyed my time back home, or check, like, even for the 2 weeks that I was gone, he was more concerned about that than checking in to see if I was okay at home. Which, it's one of many reasons why I can't respect you, Mike. He asked when I was heading out. I told him that I'd head out when I want to, because I have that freedom now. So, again, more concerned about that than everything else. Oh, he went through the guy that was moving into my spot to check in on me rather than texting me directly. And I called him out for that. Yeah, should have asked me where I was living. Like, I was still in that apartment, by the way. I wanted to hang out with him, by the way. So it wasn't going to take a whole day to, like, pack up and leave. Like, I'm actually good friends with them. By the way, more a family with them than I am with you. And those other two. No, you didn't know I was living. And then, like, even later into that conversation, he brought up that, like, look, you need to change out the, like, apartment thing to put Dakota's name on it, because we have an agreement with them to pay them, which, by the way, we were the ones that signed the lease. And you signed your own lease, apparently, and we're to give $500 every month. You didn't sign that for us. We signed it all individually. So, like, look, this is one example of him trying to control a situation he doesn't need to control. Another reason why I can't respect you. And, like, look, 2 months ago, now 3 months ago, would have called me. Because, like, so what the fuck changed? Like, all that. You decided not to call me, apparently. Like, I don't get it. But, like, look, Jason Kilcoin was right about one thing. You are full of shit. Look, I'm not going to say that you were a scam, because, like, look, I don't think that was. But you're afraid that I disagree with you, and you'd rather parent and control me. So by me simply disagreeing, I guess you lost respect for me. Honestly, why should I have to earn your respect when I should automatically respect you? Like, until you learn to respect a guy like me for simply disagreeing with you, like, and for being different, for being introverted, for actually being obsessed with hockey, which, like, if you guys are obsessed with hockey, then why don't help a guy who also is obsessed with hockey? Not like these other guys who don't care as much as I do, frankly. Like, why not fucking help me out? I do all this research and work, and you say that, oh yeah, I should always go to you. Well, I don't, because I know that you only having an hour, and Mike, by the way, you're only there like once every 2 weeks, and Brian's always late, and Mel has to pick up the charge once in a while, whenever he can, because, like, I feel bad for him the most. But no, I know you don't have the time to help me. And even with the canceling of the meeting, like, the attempt to cancel the meeting, like, obviously couldn't help. So of course I'm going to research other things that are going to help me with hockey. Like, I constantly look up YouTube videos and tutorials about hockey stuff. I've been doing that for years. And I go to the rink every day I can to work on stuff. I'll find a pond. I'd rather find a pond and skate out there than actually hang out. I don't care as much about hanging out as I do about hockey, so why not fucking help me train with that? Especially if you're obsessed yourself. The three of you. If you cared so much about what hockey gave to you, then actually fucking give back to it and more. Like, there's more you could give, and that you're choosing to not do shit. You're choosing to be like everyone else. I mentioned to Brian. I want to be better than the average Joe in hockey. I want to make hockey actually enjoyable for fucking everyone to be, so that it won't be like boring. Because, by the way, it's been in decline. It hasn't been growing, it's been in decline. It's not as popular as the other four sports. It's actually, like, arguably the fifth sport in North America. And you guys are doing the same old shit that makes it not enjoyable, actually. You know why kids always search highlights? Because they see these amazing plays of skill. They don't search up the big hits. They will once in a while. But, like, the big hit's the same thing every time. Skill on display, maybe the same thing a few times, but different once in a while. That's why I choose to go to skill instead of physicality. Not to say that hockey isn't a physical sport anymore, but there's a reason that the superstar NHLers are what they are. Extremely skilled at hockey. So why not research those guys and teach that to other players? That's what I'm going to do. And you guys can rot all you want by teaching the same old system stuff and making it actually not fun. Which, by the way, of course, these guys aren't going to have fun. You keep saying that, hey, you guys should have more fun. Well, if you're going to keep teaching the same old shit every time, making them do 100 push-ups after practice, or if they're a lost game, or for a tier 3 junior league, then of course they're not going to enjoy it. I will gladly take over this team and coach them for the last, 2 weeks of the season and make them match the mechanics of the best NHLers. I will gladly do that. Can run it better than fucking systems. Well, if you didn't know my motivation to coach, then there you go. So, yeah, again, I'll keep training. There's nothing that's stopping me from, training. I'll keep working at the rink that I train at, so might as well keep training. Got nothing better to do. Got nothing else I want to do, so I don't know if I'm going to college. We'll see what happens. By the way, you guys haven't cracked 10 wins in league games. So, and looks a lot like you're not going to. So, and again, you just traded away your captain and leading goal scorer and leading scorer. So, there's a bunch of reasons to suggest that you coaches gave up on them. And you guys always talk about having work ethic, and you always do the same thing over time. And again, I talked about this. The players can repeat and memorize the systems back to you, and there's a reason they can do that. It's because it's easy to memorize on paper. But when you actually put it on the ice, there's a lack of skill set. You guys don't teach the skills, so they can't execute it at the level you guys hold them to, which obviously is too high for them, for their skill set. So, and then you continue to not teach them skills. You continue to punish them. You continue to talk down on them, hey, be better, because and I know how to make you better because I have this experience in hockey. Like, and because I've seen this happen before, it's the exact same thing. No, it isn't, by the way. Clearly, you guys are responsible for some things, and you're not taking into account what you're responsible for all this for all this losing. Like, yeah, you guys are on the fucking ice, but you're still responsible. You're still teachers to these guys. Like, obviously, they don't know everything because you guys know everything. So, like, fucking teach them if you know everything, right? Let me tell you what you could be responsible for. You're not teaching them skills. You constantly chirping them. You constantly saying they need to be better. Not specifying what they need to be better at. Not specifying terms like explosive or like be in this place at this time, and like just not being specific in general. The only thing you get specific at is bottom hand engagement, but even that has a gray area because like if you get someone who sticks their ass out at you to protect the puck, then like how the hell you get around that? You can't just push them into the wall because that's a penalty. But just not being specific enough, not teaching the skills, always chirping them, always punishing them, always saying they need to be better when you don't specify what they need to be better at. Like, those are only 5 things, and I can think of them right away. Not taking advantage of what's out there with technology and the video. Like, yeah, you put your GoPros on the bench to watch the player's attitude. What the fuck's that gonna do, first off? Like, you do the walkthroughs. Like, I remember being part of that. But you keep talking about this time that you broke someone's jaw and, like, that sort of thing. And yeah, you guys aren't good enough. You need to keep doing this thing that obviously doesn't work. What is that, like 7 or 8 things? You should have more. Like, I don't know what you do behind the scenes. I've told you what I do behind the scenes. You don't listen to it, but I've told you. So, and I've made up a long list of responsibilities for this situation to happen, and why I decided to stop playing when I had the choice to keep playing. And you guys also don't stick to your word with, like, being family first and teaching life lessons before hockey and school and stuff. And you guys only coached me on, like, a few things. That's it. And coached me on anything else. Like, and by the way, if you say that someone's a smooth skater or someone has a good shot, then explain how they have a good shot or how they skate well or how they stick handle, so that you can teach that to other players. And if you can't explain it, then obviously don't, but don't just quit on it. You have to, like, keep researching it, because by the way, it is possible to skate like McDavid, skate like McKinnon, skate like Barzal, move like Pedersen, shoot like Laine, shoot like Ovechkin, stick handle like Kane. Like, you could do all the things that the superstar NHLers are doing, yet you're not teaching it. You'd rather teach systems that everyone knows. You'd rather teach underhandling, which, by the way, is not natural to players' like movement. Like, it's actually more natural to stick handle, or as you call it. It's just, I see it as hand and feet synchronization. You have an opportunity, by the way, because the downhill skating system is still open. It's open at any time for you to research what the NHLers are doing so that you can be an effective coach. Because, well, if you want, I think you can still be effective either, regardless, but it's helps even more to know how players move. It's like you can only go so far with just, like, teaching stuff. If you know how players move, then you can go even further. But yeah, I think I'm done. So I thought for the end of this that I'd just list off my list of frustrations and my list of my responsibilities for this to happen. And I hope this sets a trend. I hope this sets an example for people to follow. I hope a lot more people do this, and I hope the coaches do this as well. Because it's obviously not all on the players for them not making a higher level or their team not doing well.